So good afternoon, everybody. This is Breaking Boundaries Foundation here with our first live webinar with Mr. Turron Davenport, ESPN reporter for the Tennessee Titans. So we're going to let him share a little bit about his journey with becoming a reporter and just kind of give us overall background on what it takes to be an ESPN reporter. So we'll go ahead and let you have the floor, Turron.
Now, first things first, it takes a lot of luck. Now, really, it's been a long path. Basically, what happened with me, I played ball in college. I had a few opportunities, a few looks from arena league teams, the New York Dragons, the New Jersey Gladiators, and then also CFL, Saskatchewan Rough Riders, and Hamilton Tiger Cats. And those opportunities just didn't work out. But what I saw was Bleacher Report. Now, this was back when it was pretty much just a fan site. And I saw them be sold to Time Warner for $30 million. And I said, whoa, time out. If they could write about football and get paid for it, I can too. And at the same time, I was doing football camps with the guy that I played ball with in college. And we did camps for guys like Deshaun Jackson, Jason Avant, Marion Barber. And just through that, just a lot of interaction with other players and just sitting down and talking shop with them. So, well, wait a minute. I bring something that's kind of different from what's out there because I'm able to talk shop and just, use the verbiage, but also make it understandable for people. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And basically what I did, I created my own website. I taught myself how to design a website using Front Page. That's an old school web design platform. And I put a site together. It was called Press Coverage Sports. I reached out to some other friends that were hungry and eager to get things going. I had a guy writing about the Cowboys. I focused on the 49ers. I was a lifelong 49er fan. So I was always able to, obviously know the team. Then I had someone else writing about the Falcons and another person writing about the Steelers. In doing those camps, one of the things that I wanted to do, because there was a guy that was playing football on the West Coast for Nevada by the name of Colin Kaepernick. And I really loved his game. And as a 49er fan, I said, you know what? I think this will be a good match. And coincidentally, Jim Harbaugh and Trent Baalke, the head coach and GM at the time, I saw that they were going back and forth to Nevada a lot. So I said, I guarantee you they're going to trade up to pick him. Now, I was off by 2 picks. I think Cap was picked with the 42nd pick or 43rd. I could be mistaken. But either way, I predicted a trade up. And in that whole process, getting back to the football camps, I wanted to have him I wanted to do a camp with him. And for me, it was an opportunity. I said, I could get with a guy who I think is going to be a future quarterback for this team, et cetera, et cetera. And it just so happened that he had his first start on Thursday Night Football against the Chicago Bears. And it was an outstanding start. I wrote about that, and through the process of trying to get the camps taken care of, I became cool with his agents. And his agent sent it to him. He put it on his Facebook page, and this is where kind of the luck part, hard work meets opportunity, is when that comes into play, because he put that on his Facebook page. And then the next thing you know, numerous outlets in the Bay Area were reaching out to me and giving me an opportunity to do I wasn't getting paid to do the work, but I was still, I had a higher platform. So I got rid of my Press Coverage Sports website. I wrote for, it's called Golden Gate Sports. That's what it was called. It was part of the Fansided Network. And then from that, I went into Bay Sportsnet. And that was when I first got credentialed opportunities to write about the 49ers. So I'm no longer, in section LB 38, row 5, seat 3, which was my season tickets at the time. Because another part of this takes you have to be a fanatic, and I was a fanatic, and I still am a fanatic of the game. So what I was doing, a company I worked for actually did outfitting for U.S. Airways. So I was flying back and forth from Philly to San Francisco at least 4 times a month, right? Round trip, $170. You can't beat that. So it made it affordable. And, I was fortunate to have a wife that supported my dream, right? And she was willing, I'm not going to say but willing to go along with me pursuing my passion. And from Base Sportsnet, I did that for about a year and a half. Had really good. One of my articles, T.O. actually mentioned it. I wrote about T.O. being how he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And he mentioned that article on NFL Network when they had the Good Morning Show. Not this one that you see now, the previous format where they had players and stuff on, and it was players actually running the show. But he mentioned that, and things just began to grow from there. The whole commute back and forth, commute I call it, going to San Francisco and back. I would go there Saturday morning and stay till Monday and fly back Tuesday morning. That got tiring, So what I did was I told myself, okay, there's 3 markets here near me that are basic driving distance: DC, Baltimore, and Philly. And I had the New York one too, but I said, you know what? I'm going to hone it down to Baltimore and Philly. And where I lived happened to be, I go 40 minutes north, I'm in Philly, at the Eagles complex. I go an hour and a half south, I'm at Owens Mills at the Ravens complex. I said, you know what? I'm going to try to go, not try because we don't try, we do. I'm going to go after the Ravens gig, right? So what I did was I sent every single outlet in Baltimore, every outlet. I sent them samples of my work. I sent them a little podcast and stuff that I had done. And one of them reached out, the Baltimore Times newspaper. And it's a smaller newspaper. It's not the Baltimore Sun. It's a smaller newspaper. It's a black newspaper. And they reached out and they said they would be willing to pay me per article that I did. So you know what? I went and did that. I covered the Ravens for 2 years, was credentialed there in the whole process. And Lanos, you're familiar with Football Game Plan, and that's a group that I also did draft work about. And I actually came across you that way, and through that whole process, I became known on the Twitter universe as a draft guy. So USA Today, they reached out to me and they asked me to write for their Jets Wire site. What they wanted to do was follow the ESPN model, where the NFL Nation, we have a writer covering each team. I was willing to do that. They wanted me to do specific draft work. So I just did draft profiles and things like that on different prospects. But then from there, they began to expand. And coincidentally, they had the opportunity, I had the opportunity to either open up the Eagles Wire website or the Ravens Wire website. And I said, you know what? Time for a change. I went after the Eagles one. I got that. I built that website. And in 2 years, over 15 million page views, so it grew and grew. Obviously, them winning the Super Bowl was a big help, but the team had a lot of personalities, whether it be Nelson Aguilar, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, you name it, Carson Wentz, who happened to come there in 2016 and really, set things on fire in Philly. And in September, I got an offer. Not this past one, but the September before, September 17. I was leaving the facility and I get an email and they were asking me about writing a book about Carson Wentz. And I said, oh yeah, sure. I responded, sure. Let's do it. They said there's one condition, and the condition was I have 14 days to write it. So me personally, I'm the type of person, if you challenge me, I'm going to not only look to meet your challenge, but I'm trying to beat it. I wrote it in 11 days. So, it's not a huge book. It's there's a lot of pictures and stuff, but it took a lot of research. And, if you guys go and check it out, you'll see that it goes pretty much in depth going back to high school days for Carson. But, I wrote that book. And then at the same time, NBC Sports Philly. And this goes back to what I said before about making sure that you have hard work meeting opportunity. Because when I first got to Philly, 2016, Comcast Sportsnet, back then is what they were called, and they were doing live hits from Eagles draft or Eagles training camp, excuse me. And one of the guys, his name is Barrett Brooks. He's a former Steelers, Eagles. He played for a few other teams, but he won a Super Bowl ring with the Eagles. And he, offered me a shot to go on with him. I was just talking shot with him. He was like, yeah, come on, we're going to do a hit. And it was funny because before the hit, he said, well, what do you want to talk about? I said, all right, look, man, we'll talk receiver, DB, LB, O-line, whatever you want. You lead, I'll follow. And sure enough, we got on there, and I turned that one opportunity, just that random one, into a contract to do Eagles content on. Initially, it was called Breakfast on Broad, but then it was also called Philly Sports Net and Philly Sports Talk. And I was doing over 2 years that I was there, I was doing a weekly segment on there. So you have to be ready when your opportunity comes. So that's something that, is kind of proof of that. And then, opportunities they continue to come my way. In March, I got a random email from someone from ESPN saying, hey, would you be interested in one of our NFL Nation jobs? Just like the Carson Wentz thing, I replied with those 4 letters, SURE, and it just grew from there. I went through an interview with that person and then another person, and then they called me. It was June, the first week of June. They called me and they said, would you be willing to come up to Bristol for an interview next week? Without looking at the calendar or thinking what I had on the menu for the following week, I said yes. So I flew up there. I interviewed. It's a long interview. I interviewed from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and everything that they asked me, I hammered it away, and here we are. So that's pretty much my story. Right now I'm covering the Titans for ESPN and doing random hits on NFL Live, Sports Center. And in that whole process, and I say it before and I'll say it again, the part about making sure that your hard work meets opportunity. I said to myself when I was doing work in Baltimore, I said, you know what? I need to make sure that I'm TV ready, right? So I was never asked to do TV hits before I started doing them with NBC Sports Philly. But I made sure that I did them. So after every game, after every practice, I would do what's called a 3 and out. And these were just reps that I got. And then going down to Senior Bowl, recording stuff with Emory Hunt football game plan at the Heisman Award and everything, East-West Shrine game. I made sure that I had my reps so that I presented the video aspect, the digital aspect, and the audio aspect. And one of the things they asked me during the interview process was, what do we get if we hire you? I said, I'm buy one, you get 2 free, right? You hire me to be your digital guy. I'll do that, but you're also going to get strong analysis via TV and excellent content via audio, via radio. And they love that. That's really what you have to find a way to make yourself unique. And that's one of the things that I was able to do. So that's kind of like, a long-winded description of how everything worked.
Great. A lot of great stuff in there, Turron. I hear a lot of entrepreneurship in there. So that's a little bit about, what the importance of that played on your career. It just sounds like you started a lot of things yourself, and I think that's really important to a lot of things. A lot of the way that this generation is going, there's a lot of people working for themselves. So, I think that played a good role in your career. So if you would tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that is a major advantage now that wasn't before is information, the availability of it, right? Like I said, I wanted to start the website. I taught myself how to create a website, right? I wanted to do a podcast. You know what I did? I researched products. I went and got a Behringer mixer. I bought a microphone by Audio Technical. I learned how to mix all that stuff together. And you have to find a way, really. You have to make your own way, and I figured out a way to, take interviews from the locker room and put them into the podcast that I would do. I was doing this in my basement, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. You have to be willing to crawl before you're going to run. And you have to see your vision and not allow anyone to deter you from that. It's funny, this morning I was talking to my wife about just, how we got here. And she was telling me how my father-in-law, her dad, how he always would look at ESPN and these different stations and say that's going to be me because he felt my hunger, he felt my drive, and you have to have that. And really, in order to make this work, you have to have that passion that people can feel. So when you talk to them and when you deliver your message, they'll walk away like, yeah, this person loves what they're doing, and they have no choice but to be successful. And that's really what it is. And like I said, teaching yourself how to, be your audio guy. Because a lot of times, even like now, when I do a radio show, I look and I see what's going on behind the glass. You got your guy with the earphones on, and he's mixing and making sure that the volume's right here, and then he's handling calls, and then I was doing all that stuff by myself. You know what I mean? So now doing a radio show is simple because I'm just sitting here talking, as opposed to what I used to have to do. So it's very important that you know the full process of what you're getting into, and like I said, the information is available. Research, and then it's trial and error. I mean, and you're going to have to sacrifice. I mean, there were times where, I wanted to go here or go there, but, I chose not to spend my money on that and my time on that. I chose to spend it on investing in my career because I don't have a journalism degree. I don't even have a communications degree. My degree is in marketing, right? And, it's also in football. That's how I look at it. In school, I studied marketing and football. And that's how it worked. I didn't come from Alabama, or Syracuse, where, you go right into an opportunity on the football field or behind the microphone. I went to a small school. I started at Delaware State University, and I transferred to Cheney University. That's a Division II school, so it wasn't like there were an abundance of opportunities. I just made them happen, and that's really the process. You have to really pursue your passion, and you can't, you gotta have those blinders on. You can't allow anybody to deter you from your goal. And trust me, there were plenty of people who tried to deter me from my goal. The same people laughing at me for doing a show that may not have had the best audio in my basement are the same ones now talking about, man, I'm so proud of you, this, that, and the third. And you take it all in stride, and it's natural. Anytime there's something unknown, we as people tend to doubt it. And it is what it is. But, the whole thing is never losing sight of that goal that you have at hand. You have to keep that tunnel vision. And, the other thing you got to fall in love with, right? Fall in love with the Inky Johnson. He always says fall in love with the process, more than the product. Because at the end, really there should never be an end because you always want to continue to elevate yourself. But when you start to, get a better grasp of that product, you really appreciate that product more because of the process that it took to get there.
I completely agree with that, 100%. But I heard you mention your book earlier too, so I want to let people know that this is definitely available to get. So I got my copy. I'll be ready to go. So appreciate that. And so we were just wanting to talk a little bit about your job that you're doing now. So what would you say the most rewarding thing of your job now is? I know you get to work with so many athletes that we watch on TV every Sunday. But what's the most rewarding part of your job right
now? For me, like I said, I always pride myself on being different, right? So when I'm breaking a guy down, talking about what many would call a weakness, I call it an area for improvement. And that's something I learned from every high school football game plan. I think players appreciate that. So for me, the thing that I really like the most about this job is having the opportunity to talk shop with guys who are in the game, and making things happen in the game. But then having them turn around and say, you're a real one. I appreciate the work you do. That's not something that all of these reporters get. Trust me, I've seen it in locker rooms where guys are like, man, I don't even want to talk to you. And literally they say that and they tell me, get out of my face, And there was actually a guy on the Eagles, I remember a few times, where he would, the whole crowd would come to him and he'd be like, I don't have anything to say to y'all. I want to talk to my guy. And he'll point at me and tell me to come over, and then we'll talk. And that's the reward, not being chosen over other people, but having someone respect and appreciate the work that you do, the subjects of your work, having them appreciate that. And I mean, there's lots of other things too. I mean, I definitely appreciate, when I see someone post on social media, that's my man. After they see me do a segment on whatever. I think really for the most part though, it's the interaction with fans as well as the players and the coaches too. That's something I really appreciate, and it's interesting how you learn to use what you have to your advantage, and understanding the game allows me to gain the respect and ask the proper questions, from coaches as well as players. So it's I would say the interaction, and the acceptance, so to speak.
Okay. Coach Giannis, you have anything?
Yeah. I would say for a kid, leaving high school, going into college that wants to pursue a career in sports writing, what would you say are some things that he needs to do early on?
For someone who has played or hasn't played?
You can give both.
Because I think there's two different. Okay.
I would say
for someone who hasn't played, I would say get as how can I put it? For someone who hasn't played, I would say make sure that you pursue an opportunity to be a trainer, an equipment guy or something like that with the team. So that way you could actually see these guys practice. You could, the grind that you go through in practice. And as a fellow receiver, there are going to be times in practice where you drop a ball, right? But it's okay. It's a drop in practice, right? So having that understanding and ability to put practice in perspective, and I mentioned the drops in practice because in 2016, when the Eagles had a big problem with drops, that was all the stuff that a guy would drop a practice in warm-ups, and they're like, oh, I got to go write about that. And now you're further alienating yourself from the guy that you're writing about. So getting a respect and understanding of what these players go through will help you. Now, as a player, it's naturally easy because you've been there and done that, right? You understand that, hey, you know what? Sometimes I ate something that I didn't like and my stomach hurts and I'm not going to practice as well as I did the day before when I felt good. You could appreciate that and understand that. But as someone who hasn't played the game and is not seeing them practice, you don't understand that, right? And you don't understand the work that goes into it if you're not around there. You don't understand, waking up in the morning for training and then, going to your classes and then running to get something to eat and then running to your coach's office for film and then practice. Oh, and after practice, study hall and then dinner. And then, you have a little bit of leisure time to get all your work done. You don't understand an athlete's process and you can't respect it if you haven't been through it, right? But one way that you could go through it if you haven't been through it is to get involved and see what it is that's going on. So that's how the equipment manager, the trainers. So I think that's really the biggest thing. And if you look at a lot of these guys, like Tajay Sharp from the Titans, he posted something recently about, if you can't do what I do or haven't done what I do, you have no right to criticize. Now, I'm not going to go to that extreme because I still think you have a right to do it. But having been there and done that by way of playing or been there and done that by way of being in the locker room and seeing everything on day to day, it will allow you to respect better what they've done and what they're doing, which will in turn allow you to be more thorough in your writing. So I think the first thing that you have to do is get an understanding, whether you're a player or not. The second thing is you have to really make sure that you love it, and if you have to think about some of the things that you're going to have to give up, right? And in addition to that, you have to understand that it's not something that's going to happen immediately. It's an ongoing process, and I think those are the two things that you have to make sure you understand. And then for me, like, I don't really look at anything that you could just go out and make sure that you do, you know what I mean? As far as, other than forcing yourself to understand what's going on. Watch a lot of film. You definitely want to watch film. And if you don't know what you're watching, that's fine. Get with somebody who does. I've had a lot of guys sit with me and just say, okay, what is it that you saw on this play? What do you look for when you watch a game? And when you're able to go ahead and get them to understand that, and work with them to understand that that's an advantage for you. So that's really what it is, man. And it's just a matter of you have to be thorough. It's just like anything else. The better you understand it, the better you're going to do at it. And if I could add something else too, networking. It's always good to network. Case in point, I wouldn't be on here if you didn't, if you didn't, contact me to do this, right? I wouldn't have even been a contact if we didn't cross paths in the draft community years ago. So you always have to network and hold on to those contacts that you get and those connections that you get and cultivate them. You have to find a way to make yourself memorable to people. So that's one thing that definitely help. And I mean, it's not always what you know. It is a lot who you know, but you have to be prepared for when who you know allows you to show what you know. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Good stuff. I appreciate that, Ron.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question, actually.
Yeah.
was about networking. What was the importance of that? Because, I'm definitely I agree with your statement.
Yeah. It's huge, man. It's huge. You have to, like I said, make yourself memorable. You have to take advantage of every opportunity you get. I remember, like, Sirius Radio, man, NFL radio. I used to call into those shows all the time. And anytime they gave me a chance to speak, I always made sure I had valid points. And they began to, look at me as, man, this is one of the smartest callers in our show. Pat Curran, former GM of the Jets, and Jim Miller. Well, at the time, it was Tim Ryan. They had a show. It was called The Drive. It was from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., 6 p.m. And I would always call that show, man, sit there on hold for an hour and finally get on and only get to talk like 5 minutes. But I made that 5 minutes, the most vivid and thorough 5 minutes of my whole day. And it began to get to a point where when I went to interview for jobs, Pat Curran would be a reference for me. You have to develop relationships and turn those relationships into something that will work in your favor. And that's an example. And it's more than just Pat Curran. Alex Marvez, another one where, I would just be able to use his name, give his information for a reference for jobs. And it always helped, ESPN, this job that I have, a guy by the name of Sal Palantonio was a big help in what has led to me getting the job. He gave me good references. A lot of my other contacts within the ESPN Nation, just from doing NFL stuff, they reached out and spoke on my behalf too. So no matter where you are, you can never have too many contacts and references. That's a big thing.
Great points there, Turron. I really admire your work ethic, man. I can definitely see how that you work hard for what you've become, and we're gonna be praying for your success, man. Beyond this as well, I know you're headed up to Bristol, you said. So we'll be praying for you, man. Hoping the best for you. Waiting to see you on the TV screen. So I know you're headed up really soon, man. So I think that's all the questions I have for you today, Coach Giannis. Do you have any more questions for Turron today?
I think you've pretty much answered all the questions I had. I mean, I was going to ask a question about networking, but he hit on that.
Yeah. Nailed it before we can get to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Great minds think alike.
That's the importance of it. Since all three of us, we're thinking that. So
right.
Out there watching is definitely important to network, and no contact is too small. And that's the other thing you have to realize. humble yourself and don't allow yourself to feel like you're bigger than anyone else. Always be willing to take part in projects, whether it be a smaller podcast. Look at everything as a rep. That's how I look at it. Every opportunity that I get to talk about this game, that's how I look at it, man. When the Eagles played the Titans, and my wife said, because a lot of the times I was on the phone, but we were in the car driving somewhere, doing a show. But I probably did about 8 or 9 segments, whether it be for Sirius, for various stations in Philly, for stations here. You have to be willing to do that and just look at the positive side of it, because it's just another rep, another opportunity to get better.
Right.
Great.
I do have one question for you, Turron. How big is internships? For kids trying to jump into that field.
Well, I didn't mention that because I didn't do any internships, but it's definitely a huge thing, because not every situation works out the way mine did, right? You definitely want to do everything you can to get yourself in the best position to get the job you want. So internships, no matter where you are, there are various offices where Sirius, ESPN does a lot of internships, NBC Sports Philly, the various newspaper outlets. Like we have here in Nashville, there's the Tennessean. They had a guy who was 19 years old, coming out to training camp. So he's 19 years old. He's asking Mike Vrabel questions. He's 19 years old asking Marcus Mariota questions. So the internship could definitely lead to a huge opportunity, and that whole thing would get you more comfortable before you even get that huge opportunity that you have. So it's just like I said, it's another rep, but it is definitely big. No internship in my mind is too small. Whether you're doing an intern covering a Cheney University football game or covering an Alabama football game. Either way, you're covering football, and it's another opportunity for you to, again, hone your craft, get a better understanding of the game, and just take advantage. And you take every experience that you have and lead it up to a bigger one that's going to come your way, and then you just keep stacking. That's really how I look at it.
Another rep. I like that, Turron.
You know the value of reps, man.
Oh yeah. When in doubt, steal the reps too.
Sure. That's one area, one platform where it's all right to steal.
Exactly.
Yes, great. So we appreciate your time today, Turron. Hey man, I just really want to thank you for taking the time out to meet with us.
No problem. And also, by the way, next month there's going to be another Eagles book coming out. So definitely make sure you guys check that out. It's going to be coming out mid-November, so it'll definitely be on the shelves before Black Friday, before the Christmas shopping process begins. So definitely check that out. It's about Doug Peterson and some of the other Eagles. I honed in to about 7 or 8 guys and just focused on their story, just going through struggles and adversity, going through the underdog process, and become a Super Bowl champion.
Okay, so we'll make sure people know where the link to this book is as well too on our website, so people can support you. Check out that book.
Appreciate it.
All righty. So I think we're good here today, Mr. Turron and Cisco. I think we can log off now.
All right, appreciate it, Turron.
All right.
Thank you.